Okay, a warm welcome to everybody for day 2 of our Sdg Cities Conference, gratefully hosted by our friends in Shanghai and inspired by all the experts from UN Habitat and across the world. Everybody who has joined already yesterday, it was fascinating to see the rich and deep advancements we could see from the different cities, but as well the progress which is made already in order to share with the world progress on SDG implementation. A warm welcome from me here in Switzerland. My name is Roland Schatz. I'm the founder of the UNGSI Foundation. I had the honor of working with Michael Möller at the UN in Geneva during his term when he was Director General. And he was always very clear that two things which matter the most. Number one, we only will reach our goals if we work together in clear friendship. And number two, it makes no sense to invent the wheels twice. So let's learn from each other. And the amazing start we had yesterday was exactly done in this spirit. For everybody who invites me to moderate, you know this comes at a certain price, and the price is I have to share with you a little anecdote from Beethoven, as I can't do without him. And my anecdote for today from him would be, imagine you are sitting in a concert hall and you are ready to listen to his amazing Ninth Symphony. Beethoven was the musician, one of the few who was already accepted and adored during his lifetime. Now imagine he was closing his lifetime work with the last symphony, the Ninth. He again he made a big change and made a revolution with this by coming up in a way by saying, well, having an orchestra is one thing, but this time I would like to add a choir. And we all know the Song of Joy. And the Song of Joy comes as the closing in the last movement. But guess what? Before the choir comes, there's the tenor making a silence moment saying, dear friends, we can do better. What are these tones? We should sing a new song. And then he starts with a Song of Joy, which we all know. And we know that when the wall came down, which divided East and West, what was heard all over the world to illustrate the pictures, the Song of Joy. This is the spirit I would like to set for today's session, because it's all about collaboration. You will hear from amazing leaders around the world who are setting up the Twin Cities program, the collaborative spirit of getting things done together, because, and that's as well a reality of today's world. 2 months ago, we saw these pictures from Afghanistan, where we saw that although the world tried to achieve something, we failed. And we failed big time because we forgot to make sure that whatever we do, we need to think about those in the country, of those who feel like being left behind and who need to be convinced that if we ask them to change, if we ask them to walk the extra mile together with us, implementing the SDGs, this will only work if we be sure, and if they can be sure, that we are thinking about each other. So therefore, today's session is about learning from cities, learning from good examples, learning from the private sector, learning from all the institutions who are giving a helping hand, making things possible. But we are now, for these 2 hours, in listening mode, making sure that we get things right. Because as we know, the money is there, to implement the SDGs. The know-how is there to implement SDGs, and the spirit is there anyhow. But it's all about the nitty-gritty details, making it difficult to file the projects in order to receive the funding. It's difficult the moment once we receive the funding, making sure we find the right partners who are going to use these funds absolutely in line with what was planned. And then most important, that we have, and that was yesterday's amazing session with Roberto and all the experts, making sure that we are not doing the right thing alone, but we find the exact metrics, the right academic approach to make sure that what one does in Africa, what another does in Asia, that it is monitored along the metrics around the SDGs, so then others can learn from it, so we are ready to accelerate. Having said this, I'm extremely happy to introduce my good friend and lighthouse, Prof. Musibono, who is the advisor to the president of DRC. And we all know that the current president of DRC, Felix Tshisekedi, is not only the president of DRC, but since February, he is as well the president of the African Union. So what he tries to achieve in DRC can be shared with others along the continent. And therefore, I'd like to give the word to Prof. Musibono to share with us the experience you made already, what are your plans, and what would you like to achieve together with this group today and with all of us in the coming years, because we only have 9 more years to make it happen. Prof. Musibono.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Roland. I would like to speak in French. You know why? Because in French, I will be very fluent, being from a francophone country. Dear colleagues, chers amis, chers collègues, la conférence d'aujourd'hui est une opportunité pour nous de présenter la situation des villes africaines, en commençant par la grande mégapole de Kinshasa, une ville de plus de 9000 km², avec une population d'environ 17 millions, et où des problèmes environnementaux et sociaux se posent avec acuité. Parce que, comme vous le savez, la plupart des villes africaines ont été construites sur le modèle colonial. C'est-à-dire, il y avait un quartier central ou centre d'affaires où habitaient les colonisateurs et la périphérie était habitée par les populations indigènes. Mais après les indépendances dans les années 1960, les pays africains ont vu leurs villes accroître de façon désordonnée dû à l'exode rural. Parce qu'effectivement, à l'indépendance, tout le monde rêvait d'aller en ville dans la capitale pour attraper l'emploi, pour avoir de meilleures conditions de vie. Et ceci a créé un trop-plein dans les villes parce que les infrastructures d'accueil étaient inférieures par rapport à la demande. D'où le désordre dans les villes africaines, notamment toutes les grandes villes, en commençant par Kinshasa. Et par rapport au climat, quel est l'impact de cette situation par rapport à l'environnement, le climat? Et bien sûr, on a vécu la pandémie qui est encore en cours. Quelle est la réponse attendue des Africains par rapport à cette situation? À Kinshasa, quand nous regardons l'ensemble du pays, les émissions de gaz à effet de serre sont faibles. Et dans les villes, elles sont essentiellement dues au transport et à l'énergie domestique. Parce qu'il n'y a pas d'industrie, il n'y a pas de grandes industries. Le pays, d'ailleurs, quand vous prenez les données de l'Afrique entière, c'est moins de 5% d'émissions. Donc, c'est très faible par rapport à la pandémie climatique que nous appelons changement climatique. Et les centres d'émission les plus remarquables sont les villes. Parce que dans les villes, le transport en commun et privé fonctionne sur base d'énergie fossile. On utilise le carburant, le pétrole, sous toutes ses formes pour organiser le transport urbain. Ceci constitue la première source d'émission de dioxyde de carbone qui se retrouve dans l'atmosphère et qui contribue bien sûr au changement climatique. Et pour mettre fin à cette situation-là, nous sommes en train de réfléchir sur la demande du président de la République, M. Félix-Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, à trouver des solutions pour promouvoir les énergies vertes. Comment organiser les transports en commun en s'appuyant sur les énergies vertes. Ainsi que, pour le moment, nous sommes en train de nous focaliser sur l'hydroélectricité, sur l'énergie solaire, sur l'éolien, mais surtout les deux là, et avec l'assainissement, qui a une tendance à produire la bioénergie à partir des déchets organiques. On produit l'électricité et les résidus obtenus sera convertis en biocharbon pour remplacer le charbon de bois qui favorise la déforestation. Ça, ce sont des actions prioritaires. D'ailleurs, la communication des pays d'affaires à Glasgow repose sur cela. Deuxième réponse par rapport aux énergies, et comme je vous ai dit, au niveau domestique, la population utilise surtout le charbon de bois. Et qui dit charbon de bois, charcoal in English, charbon de bois signifie déforestation. Et quand on détruit les forêts, on favorise le réchauffement climatique parce que la quantité de dioxyde de carbone dans l'atmosphère devient plus élevée puisqu'il n'y a pas eu séquestration. Et dans les villes, cela est encore plus important parce qu'il y a une concentration humaine très importante. Comme je vous ai dit, à Kinshasa, c'est 17 millions d'habitants, ce qui est très élevé avec toutes les conséquences que cela comporte. Et donc, en produisant les biocharbons sur les déchets, parce que les déchets, la ville de Kinshasa produit chaque jour, tenez bien, 10 000 tonnes de déchets. Et sur les 10 000 tonnes, 65% sont des déchets biodégradables qu'on peut convertir en énergie électrique et en biocharbon. Il y a des partenaires qui sont en train de construire des unités de production d'énergie à partir de ces déchets-là, et nous ne pouvons que les appuyer. Pour ce qui est de l'énergie solaire, il y a beaucoup de projets en cours qu'on est en train d'installer. Mais pour l'hydroélectricité, à part plutôt les micro-barrages, nous avons le grand barrage Inga qui constitue les rêves du président de la RDC pour construire le grand Inga 3 pour favoriser l'industrialisation, mais également la production de l'hydrogène bleu. Parce que si on a Inga 3 avec 11 500 MW, on pourra produire de l'hydrogène bleu et même, disons, affecter l'excédent énergétique à d'autres industries comme la fonderie d'aluminium et j'en passe. Donc, ça, c'est pour les transports urbains même. Comme maintenant, là, les transports en commun, comme je vous l'ai dit au début, ce sont des bus qui fonctionnent sur base d'énergie fossile, c'est-à-dire le pétrole. On est en train de promouvoir, on cherche à promouvoir les trains urbains, les métros et les tramways avec l'hydroélectricité ou l'éolienne. Et d'ailleurs, pour ce qui est des transports individuels, on se bat pour qu'on puisse utiliser le cobalt et le cuivre et le lithium pour produire des voitures électriques en RDC, ce qui serait une très bonne chose parce que plus de 65% du cobalt mondial, c'est en RDC. C'est une opportunité à saisir. Puisque la Terre est unique, le monde est unique, nous sommes un seul village, donc il n'y a pas à créer des divisions pour que l'humanité continue à souffrir. Et au niveau des villages où il n'y a pas de grandes connexions, mais tout le monde doit contribuer, on fait la promotion des foyers améliorés qui consomment moins de charbon de bois ni de bois pour éviter la déforestation. Et les modes agricoles sont en train d'être échangés avec attention particulière à l'agroforesterie et à la bioagriculture pour éviter l'agriculture itinérante sur brûlis qui détruit la forêt de façon plus ou moins exagérée, ce qui est une mauvaise chose par rapport au changement climatique. Maintenant, comme vous le savez, l'Afrique...
One more minute, Prof.
Yes, l'Afrique traverse la pandémie Covid-19 comme tout le monde. Et pour cela, les structures sanitaires du pays n'ont pas su répondre à la demande parce que, comme vous le savez, personne ne s'y attendait. Et comme nos systèmes de santé sont très faibles, nous sommes en train de chercher à moderniser les structures de santé pour favoriser la réponse en cas d'épidémie. On ne souhaite pas que la COVID-19 revienne encore, mais bon, il faut prévoir, mieux vaut prévoir que guérir. Et par rapport au changement climatique, le fait que l'Afrique tout entière se bat pour 2 murailles vertes. Il y a la muraille verte au nord pour bloquer l'avancée du Sahara et la muraille verte au sud pour bloquer l'avancée des Kalahari. Donc, si les deux projets-là, macro-projets de murailles vertes qui vont de la côte atlantique à l'ouest vers la côte indienne à l'est, sont construits et établis, l'Afrique va répondre positivement aux impératifs du changement climatique. Je pense que là, c'est l'essentiel du message de mon intervention de ce matin. Je vous en remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Do we have immediate questions, one or two, for Prof. Musibono? Otherwise, you can write it in the chat as well, and we can get back to that at a later stage. We will start now with the 3 mayors. We start off with the mayor from La Paz, Herman Durand. Herman, I'm not seeing you in the list up there. Are you in the group? If Herman is not there yet, how about Ana from Spain, from the city of Vitoria-Gasteiz? Probably am not pronouncing it properly. Ana?
We have a video from Ana.
So maybe we start with the video. And Prof, if you can mute your mic, yeah.
Un saludo a todas las personas que nos acompañan. Mi nombre es Ana Oregui, soy la teniente de alcalde de la ciudad de Vitoria-Gasteiz, en el País Vasco. Lo primero, quiero agradecer a UNO Habitat que nos ha brindado esta posibilidad de participar en el Foro Global de las Ciudades ODS. En segundo lugar, me gustaría decir que Vitoria-Gasteiz está muy interesada en participar como ciudad en la iniciativa Ciudades ODS y que estamos sentando las bases para que esto ocurra en un breve periodo de tiempo. A continuación os voy a presentar nuestra ciudad, Vitoria-Gasteiz, y el camino que hemos recorrido hacia la consecución de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Vitoria-Gasteiz es una ciudad que se sitúa al norte de la península ibérica. Es una ciudad grande en extensión y que se divide en 3 partes prácticamente equilibradas en superficie. Una parte artificializada, residencial, industrial, infraestructuras, otra parte agrícola y otra parte forestal, natural, que además alberga 4 espacios Natura 2000 y un espacio Ramsar de importancia internacional. Nuestro camino hacia la sostenibilidad empieza tiempo atrás. Ya en el año 94 firmamos la Carta de Aalborg. En el año 98 nos adherimos a la Agenda 21. Fuimos la primera ciudad española en adherirnos a esta agenda. En el año 2008 estuvimos en el Covenant of Mayors. En el 2012 fuimos declarados European Green Capital. En el 2019 fuimos Global Green City Award y en este momento nuestros esfuerzos están plenamente centrados en conseguir los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible y en alinearnos con la Agenda de Naciones Unidas en esta cuestión. Nuestros puntos fuertes para llevar adelante el desarrollo de estas políticas se basan en dos principios transversales. Por una parte, no dejar a nadie atrás y, por otra parte, trabajar desde la transversalidad. En primer lugar, es importante establecer desde el comienzo de los trabajos una gobernanza para la agenda. Y también hemos trabajado en los equipos de trabajo y en la alineación de nuestros presupuestos con los ODS. El diagnóstico inicial de nuestra ciudad respecto a los ODS, es decir, la foto que refleja el impacto que nuestras políticas han tenido en estas cuestiones, puesto que no partimos de cero. Nuestra ciudad tiene un recorrido hace muchos años. La participación ciudadana es también un elemento clave en la Agenda 2030, con el principio de no dejar a nadie atrás. Para nosotros es fundamental que un proceso como este cuente con la validación y participación de nuestra ciudadanía. Con ello realizaremos la detección de problemas, los retos de nuestra ciudad, estableceremos nuestros ODS prioritarios, nuestras metas y definiremos acciones y proyectos. Y además estableceremos un cuadro de mando de indicadores con los que mediremos nuestros progresos y nuestros avances. En cuanto al calendario, empezamos en septiembre del 2020 con el Comité Técnico Impulsor, establecimos una gobernanza para esta agenda, hemos realizado sesiones de sensibilización sobre los contenidos de la agenda con el personal municipal del ayuntamiento, llegando prácticamente a 400 personas. También hemos trabajado la metodología para alinear los presupuestos con los ODS, una metodología que no existía y que vamos a compartir con los ayuntamientos del Estado. Y además estamos estableciendo la organización y los componentes de los equipos de trabajo de la Agenda 2030. A partir de ahí tendremos un diagnóstico inicial que se contrastará y validará con la ciudadanía, redactaremos un borrador y estableceremos los indicadores de tal forma que para julio del 2022 podamos tener nuestra agenda y nuestro plan de acción. Me detengo un momento en la gobernanza establecida, puesto que creo que es un tema complejo, pero muy importante. Hay que establecer desde el principio una gobernanza que nos permita el acompañamiento y el desarrollo de todo este proyecto. Por supuesto, todo el proceso está liderado por el alcalde. Es importante que el máximo nivel político de la institución esté implicado en el proceso, y así es en nuestro caso. Además, tenemos un comité político impulsor cuya misión es dar respaldo institucional a los coordinadores y a los técnicos que están trabajando en esta cuestión, un comité técnico impulsor, que es el facilitador, el gestor de los coordinadores y de los dinamizadores de los equipos de trabajo. Establecemos también coordinadores de ODS, que son personas expertas en sus áreas, que además conocen bien sus equipos, conocen bien los ODS, conocen la materia, y a partir de ahí establecen un trabajo colaborativo, estableciendo indicadores, estableciendo medidas, estableciendo procesos de trabajo que sean ambiciosos, pero que también sean medibles y que también sean realizables. Estos coordinadores de ODS van a trabajar poniendo en marcha grupos de trabajo que se alinean alrededor de las 5 Ps y que funcionan de manera transversal con todos los departamentos del ayuntamiento, trabajando de una manera coordinada y transversal, como decía anteriormente. Y muchas gracias por su atención. Les deseo que tengan una muy buena jornada en el día de hoy.
Thank you so much from this example from Spain. We have now Diego sharing with us his experience from La Paz, and then afterwards we are looking forward to hear from Bada Al-Munafi to learn what they have already started in Kuwait. But let's start with Diego Chavas from La Paz. Diego, the floor is yours. Diego, could it be that you are muted? Then let's start with Bada. from Kuwait, as I see him, and afterwards we hope that Diego will be able to share his experience as well. Mr. Bada.
Good morning or good afternoon. For us in Kuwait, I'm saying good afternoon. First of all, I would like to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. First, I would like to thank and extend my appreciation for inviting Kuwait's oil sector to take part in this very important conference. Being a sector that is heavily involved with the country's development plans, the Kuwait oil sector's companies are based in several locations throughout Kuwait. Each company has made substantial contribution towards the SDGs progress of the state of Kuwait, and it is my privilege to showcase a portion of what the oil sector has done in this regard. I'd like to start with the health and well-being. For example, here in Ahmadi Hospital, the annual examination programs, the oil sector cares for not only their employees, but also taking the responsibility of the health and well-being of residents of Ahmadi City. The oil sector established the first hospital in Ahmadi in 1960, called the Southwell Hospital, to serve its employee, and later in 2017, inaugurated the new Ahmadi Hospital, which treats the residents of Ahmadi as well as all its employees. The hospital houses state-of-the-art equipment and facility and has been a major contributor to its visitors. We also are keen on organizing annual medical examination for all oil sector employees and the residents of Ahmadi community to ensure the well-being through taking annual preventive measures. As you all know, COVID has struck every inch of the world, and probably I have to state that for us here, we have been heavily involved in the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where we have aided the Kuwaiti government by constructing the Kuwait Field Hospital, as well as Jabir Al Ahmed's Causeway drive-through vaccination centers. Both the hospital and the vaccination centers have been serving not only the Kuwaiti population, but also everyone in the state of Kuwait, and has been a major contributor to speeding up the country's vaccination efforts. As well as there are some supporting initiatives that the oil sector has provided to take care of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have provided isolation facilities and the capacity, with the capacity of accommodating 7,000 people in several locations in Kuwait, providing ambulances to escort nationals returning to the country from international destinations and were transferred to designated quarantine facilities. The hospital has also been providing support to the government hospitals when it was needed. Our medical staff have also assisted the emergency responses within the state of Kuwait in major hospitals. We also have created awareness campaigns that aim to inform the community at large of the importance of health and safety measures which must be taken to protect Kuwait during the pandemic. There is another thing which is really critical, and that is hiring people with disabilities. And I think in our sector, the oil and gas sector has been made very possible for efforts to ensure those with disabilities are provided with equal opportunities to build careers in our sector. As far as supporting others, we have what we call the public outreach initiatives, where we organize the CSR initiatives that aim to support local communities, such as awareness about autism and other disabilities, violence against children, cyberbullying, and wide range of health and safety issues. When it comes to gender equality, Professional Women Network has been one of the areas where the oil sector has taken the leadership in ensuring that women in the leadership roles are supported. The network has established to promote professional growth of female workforce, empower and integrate female professionals throughout all areas of work. As far as technology's perspective, I believe that in order to achieve smart and responsive digital solutions for enhancing and clean oil production, the oil sector has created one of the state-of-the-arts and considered to be one of the few digital projects in the world. It's called KUDIF, which is the Kuwait Integrated Digital Field Project. It allows the oil sector to develop on-spot responses to production facilities, production fields, while integrating data and allowing for better decision-making. And definitely that will allow the less commuting for employees and reducing the emissions from the cars. When it comes to climate actions, the oil sector has been committed to the significant achievements of maintaining gas flaring at less than 1%, which was acknowledged last year by the World Bank as a significant achievement for the state of Kuwait. Another major project that's really a center of our all, everybody in Kuwait, and I'm sure that it's going to be noticeable, it's the Clean Fuel Project. The oil sector aimed at building a strategic project, which is called the Clean Fuel Project, in which 2 of the mega refineries would be expanded to and upgraded to have a total capacity of 800,000 barrels per day. It is expected to boost Kuwait's global positioning in oil refining industry by advancing conversion capabilities, operational excellence, and upgraded reliability and safety performance to enhance the energy efficiency and environmental protection. This clean product will confirm to Euro 4 specification to reduce the oil sector's environmental impact. When it comes to life below water, KOC, Kuwait Oil Company, has a marine colony that is established to protect the underwater area of the artificial reefs that contributes to the slow recovery of Kuwait's marine wildlife. When it comes to life on land, the Kuwait Environmental Remediation Program, called KIRP, the oil sector played a pivotal role in progressing the work of the Kuwait Environmental Remediation Program, which relates to the remediation of oil lakes and other sources of contamination that have been left over from the 1990-91 European invasion of Kuwait. The oil sector works in coordination with the United Nations and other official bodies on issues related to the KIRP program, which is the largest remediation program in the world. Finally, when it comes to environmental reserves, the oil sector oversaw the development and maintenance of many environmental reserves, such as what we have them here in Kuwait Oil Company, Abdaliyah and Subayhiyah natural reserves, which help combat this desertification and increase the biodiversity throughout Kuwait, creating sanctuaries for flora and fauna to thrive. When it comes to Kuwait's SDGs priorities and SDGs cities global initiatives, the oil sector, in addition to all other sectors in Kuwait, are very delighted in covering all areas, and we are focusing on the environmental and health, where the oil sector is becoming an integral part of the country's action toward fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is why we specifically sought the United Nations Habitat Program as a strategic partner due to their expertise that we surely believe will lead to better results. In this regard, the Kuwait Petroleum Corporation, on behalf of the oil sector, has signed a memorandum of agreement with the United Nations Settlement Program, UN Habitat, on the 27th of October, a few days back, where the focus is on making Kuwait City and the human settlement sustainable, safe, and inclusive as part of SDGs 11. This includes the development of studies and future projects related to the prevention of this desertification, strengthening the environmental situation of open areas in the state of Kuwait, and ensuring environmental sustainability. Kuwait's oil sector is committed toward improving the environment of Kuwait throughout mitigation of the effects of climate change, and I have to say, we are delighted to be the contributor to Kuwait's resilient city, where we are increasing the city resilience from an environmental and social perspective, which in turn leads us derivative towards economic resilience. We believe that by achieving the SDGs, we are moving closer to achieving cities resilience through putting the state of Kuwait at the forefront of the Quad's contribution. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you again for giving me this time slot to share with you some of what we have contributed when it comes to the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm sure that if time permits, we can talk more about it. Yet, if you have any comments or you would like to know more about it, we do have online access for further information regarding the oil sectors and other sectors in Kuwait, which they have been a great contributor to Kuwait voluntary national reviews. With that, I would like to really thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Bada. We have one intervention I'm seeing from UK. Gareth Fresh, I think you wanted to add something on your elaboration on the hospital. Gareth? Hello? If I'm not seeing that right now, let's continue with the video, and once Gareth is online, we can have him connect back. We are now seeing the video from Penang.
A very good morning to all. I am Jagdeep Singh Deo, the Penang State Executive Council for Local Government, Housing, Town and Country Planning. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm certainly honored to be here to represent my state to introduce certain programs that we have called Penang Bay. This is our new economic zone that will reimagine the waterfronts of both Georgetown and Butterworth. As you know, part of our Penang sits on the mainland and the other part is on an island. So this particular project of Penang Bay will actually encompass both sides. The Penang Bay was announced in World Urban Forum 10 in Abu Dhabi in February last year. And there were over 100 submissions that were submitted globally for cities investment platform at the WF10, and we were one of the 9 shortlisted at that particular forum. And of course, following from that, we calling for an ideas competition, and this shows how much momentum this project has by the participation by so many people from so many countries. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to also showcase that this is a very important program for us as tackle climate change. It is at our doorstep, I've said this before, and when we have a program like the Penang Bay, we certainly will incorporate all the components to ensure that these major challenges that we are facing will be part and parcel of the program. In fact, I just want to say that the program has already begun. It is not a program by the state, but it is a program and a project by the state working together with the people, the private sector, and also the federal government. And we have actually moved on. It began by the northern and eastern seafront projects, which are at very advanced stages of completion, of being completed, and we are now looking at moving on at the rest of the coastline across the first Penang Bridge into the Butterworth side. And I'm very happy to be here today. To all my friends and ladies and gentlemen, we want to also showcase that this is a very important program for us. As you know, we are now in the midst of the pandemic, which most likely will become an endemic here in Malaysia soon. We have to live with it, but I always believe that when we have programs and projects such as this, we can incorporate how we can have components so as to address not only the pandemic, but also to address another very big challenge that we are facing today, which is how to tackle climate change. Mankind must now work together and be more sustainable and resilient. And I'm just here to give this example of Penang Bay as one of these projects that I believe can assist us in addressing these issues.
Very nice. Inspiring. Let's move on to the 25+5 city examples. We have with us AJ Dalasav from India. Maybe AJ, if you could give 2 examples, maybe one from Noida and one from Sikkim, where we are, and how you see the overall joint cooperation, how it can be started and how it can be further elaborated, maybe at the next Davos coming year.
Absolutely. Can you hear me fine?
Very good, loud and clear.
Thank you. So hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here, and Roland, giving me the opportunity to share with you all what we have been doing here in India. So Roland has been leading a lot of initiatives for us here in India, and a year ago in Davos, last year, we invited Noida, which is a university city close to the national capital, as the SDG city. And moving forward, we also then had one more city, a beautiful mountain city called the city of Gangtok from Sikkim, which joined the initiative. I'm very encouraged to see and hear all of you today sharing experiences and plans of what you are doing in terms of making SDG cities sustainable. For the last 2 years, we have been working very closely with the government and various offices here in India. And you can imagine, given the population and the vastness of diverse cultures and procedures, we are right now at the stage of identifying some projects which we can share on the platform here for collaboration. We are looking at a multitude of SDG goals to be achieved. We faced a certain problem in the beginning, and I was sharing with my colleagues, including Roland, that many times the governments are not enough motivated to actually pick up the opportunity and run with it, given that we have funds, we have expertise available, and we have all the support you can imagine. So that initial inertia we are trying to grapple with, but I'm seeing results fall in place where the governments are now realizing the huge benefit, especially from examples they're hearing from all of you. So once again, I think it's very exemplary to see all of you make such great progresses, and that is certainly encouraging us. We are at the cusp of identifying 3 big projects, which we have already had discussions, which we will present on this platform for supporting the SDG sustainable goals. The good part is there's a lot of awareness now here in India as well about how this is the only way forward, including citizen cooperation, citizen participation. The media has been very awake of propagating. When Roland was here, we did a press conference. Media, it was all over the news, and citizens were very excited. Both Noida and Gangtok are cities of high population, high education levels, and a lot of universities. They are modern cities with modern amenities. We are looking at areas of clean city, cleaning them of garbage. We are also looking at clean water. And particularly, we are looking at green households. That's a new project which we have started putting our business case around. There are a lot of skyscrapers here in the city, and in every society there are about 5,000 households. We are working on a project where each of the household will own up, be a participant and signatory to the SDG goals, so that the society as such, one single township of these towers, and we have about 5,000 such small towers, each having about 7,000 to 8,000 homes. So that's a lot of homes in a small space. We are looking at them signing up for SDG as one complete society. So that would include solar energy, that would include rainwater harvesting, that would include segregating the garbage in the right manner, that would include also being responsive citizens when it comes to consumption of electricity. So that's where we are. And I look forward to being with you in Davos by when we should have signed up these projects, and I would be happy to report much more progress. Roland.
Oh, very good. And maybe meanwhile you can experience a little bit the city investment facility of UN Habitat and give us some experience how the administrators both in Noida and Sikkim are able using it, and maybe where there is need to improve, we might be able to.
So thank you very much. I think that's a good point. Roland, I just add.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think this platform is very powerful because this solves a lot of problems which disparate people were trying to come. It unifies a lot of opportunities. I think this platform is going to be a game changer for us here in India. Thank you very much for that.
My pleasure. I'm seeing that Gareth is now able to give his ideas to Kuwait, to the hospital there. Gareth?
Many thanks, Roland. Can you hear me? Everyone can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Perfect.
I can hear you.
Yeah, no, fantastic. No, it's great. Gareth Presh, I'm joining you from Cumbria. So we're in the midst of floods here. So we're about 90 miles from Glasgow. So we're actually feeling the effects of climate change as we speak. And I wanted to share, I mean, it's fantastic to see everyone making the effort and, you know, developing these plans, but we have a real opportunity around health, as my colleague in Kuwait emphasized, the importance of looking at prevention. And there's a massive change happening right across the UK who are leading this, shall we say, change from the National Health Service, the National Academy of Social Prescribing, and we're supporting them with the Global Social Prescribing Alliance, which is a combination of World Health Innovation Summit, partners with UNGSII Foundation, WHO, but other UN agencies, UN Habitat and others. We want to work in partnerships so that we actually switch the model from, shall we say, pathogenic, which is disease focused, to prevention. And really that's where we need to invest, and we need to change our mindset rather than, you know, the pandemic situation. But one of the key learnings from the pandemic, if we see how well the vaccine program has worked, we have actually gone out and met the disease head on. And that's what we need to do, is get into the community and understand the value of preventing disease before it happens. So programs in our schools with our children's, ensuring that mental health and well-being is met head on so that we support them. So I just wanted to share that with you. I have all the information. I can share it with you in Kuwait and colleagues around the world. We work very closely with Roland. We've just actually come from Dublin, where we met with the Mayor and the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, so that we can share this knowledge globally. So Roland, is that okay from your perspective?
That's fine. And as I know, you have another session tomorrow, almost same time like now, with the friends from other cities, with the focus on how we can improve health and offer to the citizens a better opportunity tackling not only COVID, but the challenges around health in future. Let me move on to Nolisa, who is ready to share with us her experience from Malaysia. Nolisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roland. Very good morning and good afternoon, and very warm greetings from Malaysia. Thank you, Roland, for your very beautiful opening remarks just now. I love the quote, you know. Just some quick report maybe on where we are in Malaysia. I think Malaysia, in the cities in Malaysia, like many other cities, face tremendous challenge with regards to urbanization. And even though the scale and magnitude may differ, however, the management has become more complex because we have more than 75% of Malaysians now living in cities. So we've got about 320 cities and towns, and they are governed by about 154 local governments. And unlike some nations, our cities' governance are not autonomy, meaning to say, you know, they don't have their own laws to actually allow them to do a lot of things. However, they have a lot of responsibility, especially in implementing policies from both the national government as well as the provincial government. And cities in Malaysia probably are all equipped with their development and planning policies and frameworks. And hence, when it comes to localizing the SDGs, it becomes very relevant and very important, especially in addressing some of the issues that is being faced at the local level. And it is also seen because Malaysia have actually reported at the national level 2 voluntary national reviews, and we can always see that the reporting lacks the what's the situation really happening on the ground, especially with regards to SDG 11, and regards to all the SDGs that require local reporting. This is where the organization I am now taking care of, we are called Urbanist Malaysia under the Ministry of Housing and Local Government. We've actually come up with Malaysia Sdg Cities, and this is a document that we encourage all our 154 local governments to prepare as part of a roadmap and action plan that they align to the 17 SDG goals and the targets. Because we find that, based on the targets that has been identified, almost 70% of the targets actually are the responsibility of the local government. Of course, this is very challenging as well because data is one of the big issues that we face at the local level, and support and buy-in from state and sometimes also national agencies are also difficult for them to align their reporting system. And this is why the role that we play in ensuring that the coordination, the alignment that happens between the local level and the national level is able to actually be achieved in a more cohesive manner. And one of the issues that we find that having the SDG roadmap will ensure that our cities are able to have access to some of the funding mechanisms, because without a proper blueprint, without a proper plan, it would also be difficult to fund some of the SDG related projects at the local level. And this is where I think it's important that you have a long-term plan, apart from just having a progress report, which is what the voluntary local review require cities or to act voluntarily. And in doing that also, our Malaysia SDG cities actually focus on 3 key areas in which these are related to our national blueprints and national vision. The first one is to have inclusive growth and development for all. The second is to enhance access to quality urban services to address any form of disparity. And the third is, of course, to promote environmental sustainability to mitigate climate change. And in doing that, we now encourage cities to align the work track that we are also doing in terms of smart city, using technology as one of the ways to enable cities to actually accelerate the progress of sustainability, as well as adopt the low carbon cities framework, which is also core to assist cities to actually reduce their carbon emission in line with the climate change commitment that Malaysia has, which is a 45% reduction by 2040. And I think I just want to end to say that what you said in your opening, which is and I agree totally, which is collaboration, partnership. It has actually benefited us a lot. We hosted World Urban Forum 9, and subsequently we also hosted Asia Pacific Urban Forum. The forums have given us a lot of network across the globe, both at the global level as well as at the regional level. And at the Asia Pacific level, we now have the Penang platform for sustainable urbanization, where we have 16 members working towards the similar goals, which is to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs, and so that no one is left behind. And this kind of partnerships allow us to actually learn from one another. And we just had our second regional forum the last 2 days ago. And again, the call for more collaboration, partnership is definitely very clear, and a lot of commitment among partners as well to continue to work together to assist cities within the Asia and the Pacific region. So I think, we definitely feel that this is the way forward because it is a very dynamic situation. The pandemic have digressed us, and especially our progress have digressed us, but definitely it has also allowed us to strengthen roles which we never imagined cities would be able to do, especially in SDG 1, 2, and 3. Those were not the purview of cities in the past, but today what is not a normative role have become something of an important role for our cities. So I believe that's where we are today. We've got about 7 cities doing their SDG cities. 2 of them have already submitted their voluntary local review. And we are also excited because we are going to be submitting our first subnational voluntary local review next year. So I think, it's been a good process, and we really want to learn more from everyone. Thank you very much, Roland.
Pleasure, Nolisa. And you know what? All these video conferencing, as great as they are, I can't wait that we can see us in Katowice in a few months. No, there's no such thing like video conferencing when you can't sit together and have a hug and go more in detail, ask the questions which are so necessary, because we all know that one thing are our presentations, and the other thing is the daily fight with those who still need to be convinced. And when you get feedback and those to whom you provided already 6 versions of your presentation, and then they ask for the 7th one, we need to come to a closer way. We need to meet again. And having said that, we move on to the second half of our today's session to Daifed, as he will share with us a little bit where we stand, what his plans are, and then giving the floor to those who have already been so great lighthouses on networking, on collaboration. So Daifed will be followed by Lucy, by Karen, and by Salim. But first, Daifed, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Roland, and I hope people can hear me okay. I'm trying to share my screen. Great. So yesterday during the opening, I gave a quick sort of teaser about what we're trying to do at the SDG Cities program. And as Roland has emphasized right from the start, this is a collaborative action. So we're not owning it as UN Habitat. No one owns it. It's an effort that we're all together buying into. And we're really grateful for the participants here today demonstrating their commitment to achieving the SDGs in the next 10 years. And just to visualize it, we're sort of looking at this wheel where the center, each of the spokes could be an SDG indicator, the center being 0% achievement and the rim being 100% achievement. Now, realistically, maybe cities won't achieve everything, but they can have a plan. And I think that's what Non-Leader was saying earlier, is we cannot achieve the SDGs without a plan. And so we ask 3 questions. How far will you get by 2030? And where are you now? And that then the gap between where we are now and where we want to be by 2030 is where our efforts need to be placed. And this probably includes investing in places which have been underinvested over time. Sometimes there's a reason why parts of cities are really nice and parts of cities are not really nice. And it's a political commitment to really addressing those inequalities that exist and putting infrastructure in places that have been left behind. So that gap between where we are now and where we need to be by 2030 needs to be sort of filled with what we call software, policies, strategies, legislations, regulations, etc., and plans, and hardware, projects. And we've been talking today about various projects that are going to be transformational. So we try to support cities to connect the dots, because as Elisa was saying, you know, to make a plan, you need to have a baseline, and to have a have a baseline, you need data. So if we start with data, and this can be statistical data, but it can also be complemented by spatial data, understanding not only what are the needs, but where are the needs, but also perception data, understanding how do people feel about the streets that they live in and the communities that they live in. What are their experiences from day to day? And so the whole part of strategic planning that follows is that it's evidence-based, but it's inclusive. It engages all the cities, all the different communities, the different groups of people, the young people, the older people, the youth, women in particular, and as well as the business community and civil society. So that strategic planning has to be really inclusive and engaging. And once cities own the vision, and the mayors and the city leaders deliver the vision, then you really have that partnership between citizens and the cities. And that's what we're trying to promote. And we're also promoting as part of that, the Cities Alliance, city development strategies, as a sort of model for how to do that strategic planning approach. And then we move from there to then project development, what projects are needed. And then, as we were talking about earlier with the representative from Sikkim, the need then to finance these projects. And we're supporting that approach to financing. We'll hear later in the next session about the City Investment Facility. But there's not just data to planning to financing projects. The institutions, local institutions need to be empowered. They need to be strong. They need to be able to deliver on inclusive governance. They need to be able to plan their cities in a way that helps them drive sustainable development. And the beautiful thing I find about planning is that the same approach to planning can deliver on environmental, social, and economic dimensions. For example, when cities are compact with good circulation, good allocation of public space, and with mixed uses rather than zones, so you travel from miles to go from work to where you live and vice versa. When cities are compact, connected with mixed use and plenty of public space, with road networks that allow for multimodal transport, they deliver on economic, social, and environmental dimensions. But and cities generate economy anyway. Just simply yesterday, when we were hearing in the opening, if you did, from Ed Glazer, cities, just by bringing people together, generate economy. But that economy needs to be reflected in a flow of revenue that can then be invested in the financing of the city, of the infrastructure needed, and of the service delivery. So municipal finance revenue systems is very important. So and then once you have these in place, then the city needs to deliver services, and needs to deliver services in a way that's equitable and ensures that doesn't leave people behind. We've got a huge ambition of reaching 1,000 cities, but we have to reach 1,000 cities. We don't have an option because 2030 is upon us, climate change is upon us, social inequality is upon us, adapting to the new normal, resilience to climate change, to climate impacts, but also pandemic and everything else. We've got no option. We have to be super ambitious. And we cannot do it alone. And this is why, Roland, what you're saying about collaboration is key. We cannot do it alone. Not one of us can. But together, as Obama used to say, together we can. So how do we do this? We sort of envisage a kind of cycle going from a baseline assessment to a strategic planning process to identifying targets and having a clear vision. And then to diagnosing how well is the city performing? What are the institutions? How effective are the institutions? And how can they be strengthened? And the great thing about working in a network is that you'll find that there's one city or two cities that are doing fantastically on municipal finance. The rest can learn from it. Another city is fantastic at being inclusive in their governance, and other cities can learn from it. Another city has developed a fantastic expansion plan or fantastic plans for the future. We can learn. And I think this is how we work at scale, by champion cities and others learning from them and creating that ability to share information and share communities of learning. And then eventually investment. And if we look at the sort of the value chain from start to end, quite often a project can start off with some fantastic visions, but by the time it's finished, maybe some of the really good SDG qualities of it might have sort of fizzled away. So we are putting SDGs right in the center of the design of the project, all the way throughout its implementation and management beyond. And we're also trying then to link projects to help them in their preparation stages to be prepared well for investment. You notice here these little ticks. These are certificates. We want to also globally recognize the achievement of cities. So our executive director in the closing tomorrow will be announcing the Sdg City Certification. This is currently a UN Habitat certification that recognizes commitment. It recognizes that cities have plans. It recognizes that cities are strengthening their institutions and they're delivering on human impacts. And we hope by 2023, the Habitat Assembly, it won't just be a UN Habitat certificate, but it'll be a UN system-wide certificate, a little bit like the World Heritage recognition, World Heritage sites. We want to be able to recognize cities that are committed to the SDGs. And this morning, yesterday, we heard about the data side and the voluntary local review. And I'm absolutely with Norlisa about the fact that voluntary local review is important, but we have to do more. We have to actually deliver change. And so, but yesterday we heard about data. Tomorrow during the session, actually, tomorrow in the first session, we'll be hearing a bit more about strategic planning from the Institute of Housing and Urban Studies. So I won't talk about the first two steps of the value chain because one has happened and the other one is tomorrow. But in terms of the institutional assessment and capacity building, we are building with a very generous support of the Global CEO Alliance, a set of digital tools, one on governance that looks at administrative and inclusivity and the qualities of governance, and it provides an assessment. Another one is around planning, another one on on-source revenue, and a series of tools on service delivery. And these are digitized, so any city can get hold of these tools and start doing self-assessment of where they are. And then participating cities then get hold of training materials, and then we facilitate the forming of learning communities. Then on the investment facility, we'll hear about that in the next session, so I won't give too much away. Please stay on if you can. But basically, what we do is the projects, and the projects such as those being developed now in Sikkim, they can go into a portal so that worldwide investors can see what's coming out, what's being prepared. And then we provide that advisory support so that the projects can, on one hand, be delivering on SDGs, so we can assess how well they're delivering on SDGs, but also we can look at supporting that upstream preparation. I don't know if you heard from the president of the New Development Bank yesterday, but he said one of the major gaps is that projects are not prepared in a way that can be financed. So we have some fantastic ideas, but they're not being financed. And eventually then vehicles, we'll be hearing about those later, that put the initial sort of de-risking funding in to make these projects shelf ready to crowd in investors. To get to where we need to be, we've mentioned the digital tools. We're not just leaving cities alone with the digital tools and saying good luck. We are providing remote technical support. We hope to build even at the national level, if we have a cluster of 10 or 15, 20 cities, a national remote support center so that you can just pick up a phone and be guided and be supported. And then when cities want some tailored support, we can provide this. But the most important thing here is partnerships. We are welcoming academia. We are welcoming centers of excellence. We are welcoming impact investors. We already have this fantastic partnership with Roland, with the SDG 25+5 leadership platform and the Global Sustainability Institute. Indexing Institute. Partnerships are a way we're going to go forward. I'll leave it there, but if you want to find out more, you can email this address, SDG Cities. We have a web page, and I think even by the end of the weekend, we will be able to launch our website. But thank you, and back to you, Roland.
No, super, David. And I think what we really now need is to listen louder to our friends like Lucy, Carol, and Salim, as they have been already not only walking the talk, but giving examples. And you will see how they can share what the experience tells us, because at the end of the day, we only have 9 more years. And get me right, we won't be able to tell our daughters on January 2031 that we came up with a new idea and with a new concept. We only have the SDGs. If we fail on the SDGs, that's it. And then it will be difficult to be convincing. So we need Lucy, we need Carol, we need Salim, and we need all of you helping us to speed up And the good news from my point of view, I was in Dublin with Gareth 2 days ago and was asked, weren't these 2 years of COVID stopping us and we need to rethink the schedule? My response was, I think this was a boost in time, because now the world saw it's really not about money and it's not about the know-how. It's about learning how to speak truth. Where do certain concepts work and where do they not work? And where do we need to adjust? Because whether it is the World Bank, whether they are national programs, they might, and for sure they are all designed in goodwill and in good thinking, but often they forget our friends on the ground who need to fill out the paper without knowing how to fill them out. And we are asking certain questions and we are setting certain hurdles which might make sense in some parts in the world, but they don't make sense in other parts of the world. And stop looking only at Europe. Just see how Germany failed by trying to get the airport built in Berlin within the proper time frame. It took them longer than 10 years. Look how Stuttgart tried to renovate their train station. They're already 15 years behind. We only have 9. So look into your garden, look to your neighbors, and form networks which are working for you, which make sense for you. So therefore, Lucy, please get on stage and let us know what you have done already and how we can work together with you in future.
Thanks very much, Roland, and thank you for the opportunity just to say a few words in terms of the networking agenda, because as you highlight, I think it is really important that we do use some of the city networks to support cities to actually use some of the tools that are being developed by organizations like UN Habitat. I think, you know, sometimes we feel that the toolkit is there and then it's fine, cities can then go ahead and use the toolkit, but we know, I think, that that's not quite as simple always as it sounds. So I think, you know, there's an important role for city networks in mentoring and supporting cities. I want to talk about just very quickly about 3 initiatives. The first is really around recognizing that cities do require a networked response. It's not enough to focus on the technical components of cities. It's not enough to focus on the leadership side of cities. It's not enough to focus on financing or on planning. I think one of the things that we're realizing very strongly because of the SDGs and because of the interconnected nature of the SDGs is that cities are like whole ecosystems. And I think one of the things that we've been looking at is how do we bring together the right partners to be able to tackle and support cities as a whole? How can we look at cities as a whole? My organization, the Commonwealth Local Government Forum, is one of a number of Commonwealth organizations that have come together. So we're working with architects, with planners, with the university sector, with this Commonwealth Secretariat, which is the Intergovernmental Commonwealth. And what we're exploring is whether we can use that very widest network to think about how we support cities more holistically and how we can bring support from different levels. So we have a call to action, which we've launched, which is going to be something which will guide us in our support for cities in the Commonwealth and will guide our partnerships with organizations like UN Habitat. So we're really delighted to be able to sort of join this meeting. We've had DFID and the executive director of UN Habitat and other Habitat colleagues engaged in that process. And we're already looking at signing a partnership around linking the work that we're doing through the call to action with SDG Cities, which is really exciting because I think what that's also doing is trying to make it easier for cities to navigate some of those networks. The second thing that we're working on and focusing on, it'll come as no surprise to you to learn, is actually direct support to cities. So really, how can we use our networks to bring technical advice and guidance from one city and share that with another? So there's obviously the traditional kind of twinning models, which everybody's very familiar with, but also how we use some of that decentralized cooperation in project development and project implementation. So we've been working, for example, on local economic development projects, looking at how we can actually learn from what's happened in different Commonwealth countries and share that to support local governments who are directly trying to move towards achieving SDG 8, for example. So I think that the city networks have a strong role to play within our organization. We do have a network of cities, the Commonwealth Sustainable Cities Network, which is bringing cities together to look at both policy and also practice. And I think one of the key things for that network is remembering that we want to be as inclusive as possible, because it's often some of the smaller intermediary cities that don't have so much access to a lot of the capacity building opportunities that exist. So really, and we know statistically they are facing the fastest population increase, and they also have less ability to kind of like really make that economic to have, they don't really have the kind of economic base to cover off a lot of the investment that's required, whether that's around infrastructure or service delivery. And I think one of the things that we're particularly keen to focus on is how we can really support that intermediary sector. And so we look forward to working with others around that. And I think I'd just like to make just a couple of points about one of the things that you just said, Roland, as well, around this digital period, because I think, we have shown that this digital mechanism has been has really helped us to take a lot of steps forward in the sense of identifying what we really need to be doing, where some of the challenges are. But I think what we really need to have now as things start to open up is a strong push around action. And I think that chimes with the need to accelerate action towards achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And in my kind of experience, and our members are very ready to do that. They're very keen to do that. They're very anxious to do that. And I think, recognizing that actually the SDGs in many respects are what local government does. So in a sense, we already have a slight head start. It's just really about how we integrate that into the plans and into particularly the implementation of cities. And I'm really happy that we kind of like sit between the talk around what cities want to do and the financing agenda, because as everyone has said, it is about how we then link cities up with finance. And that is a crucial part of the jigsaw. And that's something that I think all of our city networks are really keen to do going forward, and keen to work in partnership with organizations like UN Habitat, like SDG Cities, to be able to bring our cities to the table. Thanks.
Thank you, Lucy. Really good and inspiring. And yes, we have to do this in a more transparent way, and we need to give as well feedback to the finance sector, where they often hide behind their criteria. Because for those who are not so familiar within the European process, the European Commission made it mandatory for all those banks, insurances, everybody who is managing other people's money has to now disclose how these investments are touching on sustainability. I'm very optimistic that we can move this needle and say it's not just about sustainability, it's about the SDGs. And this is, I'm pretty sure, what Carol will enlighten us on. Carol, please.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today. I thank you, Roland and DIFED and all my other panelists. I represent Sister Cities International in Washington, D.C., and we have partnerships all around the globe. And I was asked the question, what are the common challenges that our members are experiencing in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals? Of course, unbalanced capital flows of cities are always a challenge in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. There's a huge price tag to finance the much needed infrastructure and service delivery mechanism at the local level. Striking the balance of financial resources and human resources to accelerate progress is required on all fronts. Steps have been taken towards ending poverty, Goal 1, ensuring all have access to quality education and lifelong learning, Goal 4, and to delivering affordable and clean energy, Goal 7. Yet even in those areas, success can only be achieved by 2030 if progress is accelerated. For many more goals and cities, progress is stagnating. Negative trends must be reversed if we are to provide clean water and sanitation. Goal 6, ensure decent work and economic growth. Goal 8, and support responsible consumption and production. Goal 12. Urgent action is needed to strengthen environmental protection and combat climate change. Goal 13. The mismanagement of natural resources explains some of the most important gaps which need to be closed by 2030. Capacity gaps in monitoring progress against SDGs. Systematic barriers remain such as the availability and reliability of data, capacity and technical know-how, inadequate mechanisms, structures to recognize financial opportunities, and access available financial resources. Across all goals and in all cities, the lack of reliable data is one of the largest challenges. Cities need to build capacity to incorporate more SDG indicators and disaggregated data by age, sex, location, and other factors. We need cooperation to further enhance skills and capacity to improve quality of data and statistics essential to measure progress. We have seen that cities who understand their baseline are able to quantify SDG vision and monitor progress are the ones who are successful in advancing the 2030 agenda. Now, how does Sister Cities International support its members? Sister Cities International has always been committed to strengthening partnership between communities and our members. We strive to build global cooperation at the municipal level, promote cultural understanding, stimulate economic development, which ultimately impact the SDGs. Some of the things that we're doing, we are providing virtual programs on resiliency with representatives from around the world, explaining what their cities are doing to improve the resiliency of their cities. Our city officials, and I am a former city official, and one of the #1 things that we must do is justify our expenditures and what we are doing to achieve our SDG efforts. This can only be done through measurement. And so I was very happy to hear David talking today about providing that assistance to cities and being able to provide a baseline, to be able to measure, to be able to provide a cost-benefit analysis to our electorate to show how our expenditures are achieving actual goals. Cities are not created equal. Risk and opportunities vary per region, financial capacity, population, and several other factors. Not to mention the COVID-19 pandemic that further complicates the equitable achievement of the sustainable development goals in cities. Sister Cities International welcomed the cooperation with UN Habitat through SDG cities. We trust that this will be beneficial for our members to achieve sustainable urban development. This will help strengthen our city's network's capability in the following areas: planning, financing, and service delivery, as well as effective and inclusive data management. The cooperation will foster a much broader network of partners in the civil society group and private sector. It will also provide means of localizing the sustainable development goals, from setting goals and targets and determining means of implementation and using indicators to measure and monitor progress. It was once noted by former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon that, quote, "Our struggle for global sustainability will be won or lost in cities." I cannot stress enough how cities and local governments are ideally positioned to transform the broad and abstract 2030 agenda into a concrete and efficient one. I believe that SDGs should be taken in a pragmatic way, allowing cities to fit this in the local development plan that will allow all stakeholders to understand how local action contributes to their achievement. Thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to focus on how Sister Cities International and the international partnerships can help stimulate and move forward SDGs internationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. It is so spot on. It's only 30 years or 31 years ago when the wall came down dividing East and West Germany. It was the same wall which was dividing East and West Europe. But if you try to compare how Germany has developed over the last 30 years, and then how the other countries have developed, there's one difference. And this difference, we didn't call it sister cities because I didn't know you, but West Germany had cities, had church choirs, had soccer clubs, had fire brigades, and they twinned with one city or one village in East Germany. That's the reason why when you come now to Germany, you have difficulties to spot which was West and what was East. And when Prof. Musibono invited me to come to Congo 6 months ago, and I went there early March, and he took me to a rural village where they have no electricity, they have no water. And I played soccer with the boys there. And I asked them, what do you want? What are you dreaming about? And for the boys, it was very clear they would love to have a soccer ball and they would have soccer boots and shirts. And I turned around to the girl and said, look, no problem to get these balls and the shoes, but what do you want? And the girl only looked at me with big eyes and she didn't say anything. And I told her, look, I will not leave. And these boys will not get their balls and their boots and their shirts unless you tell me what you want. And after a while, she said, you know what? I never had a doll to play. So I said, well, if I come back, and I will come back, you will be surprised. I went home and I asked my 7-year-old daughter, and I said, now you have a job. Speak with your friends in your school class. In this village, there are 125 kids, 76 girls, the other ones are boys. Can you please organize this? Next week, I'm flying back to Congo. I have 24 boxes. We can serve not only the one village, we can serve the neighbor village. Guess how this program is called? Girls Helping Girls. We can sort out all the rural villages, not only in Congo, because there is not one single girl on this planet who has 2 dolls or 4 or 5, or like my daughters, rather 50, who are not willing to share. And to give with the dolls as well some school books and some pencils. So we can do it. We just need to want to do it. So let's move on to Salim and learn from him. The floor is yours, Salim.
Thank you, Roland. And I would like to thank everyone who organized this event, the city of Shanghai as well, for organizing this event and inviting me for this session in particular. So I will also frame my intervention similar to what Carol has did. First, I would like to start with the challenges of our cities. As we have mentioned before, cities have a significant lack of localized data. So this national statistical institutes may have produced many data on many topics, but they are not necessarily localized. So cities with stronger data capacity can be better engaged in SDG localization and implementation efforts because they know what to focus on better. And better data management, of course, it means better prioritization of actions. And awareness. Even if the mayor himself or herself is willing to engage in SDG localization efforts, if the community is not well prepared for that, they may be asking for some other actions which are not necessarily in line with SDG framework. So accordingly, some city leaders may not be well motivated to implement SDGs in their cities. So these are the main challenges, particularly in my region. As UCLG MEWA, I'm representing UCLG MEWA, United Cities and Local Governments, Middle East and West Asia section. We are operating in a very difficult part of the world, as you all know. Many of the countries in the region are conflict or post-conflict countries. So it's a real challenge for us to convince the local leaders to work on this. And it may not be easy to even reach out to them sometimes, but we have a threefold strategy of localizing SDGs, and we call it focalizing, vocalizing, and localizing SDGs. It rhymes well as well. So we first, we need our cities to focus on SDGs. We need them to frame their activities around SDGs and then vocalizing it. They need to be vocal. They need to speak about SDGs and implementation of SDGs to motivate their citizens as well. And of course, then comes the localizing part. They need to adapt SDGs to the local realities of their cities. So as UCLG MEWA, we had 15 workshops in different cities in Turkey. We are based in Turkey, so we started in Turkey. And we tried to align the municipal activities of 15 different municipalities with SDGs. We discussed more than 2,000 projects one by one with the relevant cities, and we tried to align them retrospectively with the SDGs, and we want them to plan their future activities with SDGs in that way. We have a report on that, we may share it with you. And then we even had a training of trainers in Tehran to implement the same project in Tehran, but then when the COVID crisis came, we postponed it, but we will be working with them as well. And in the next session, I think our partner in Iran will be speaking, the Asian Mayors Forum. We are partnering with them in these efforts. And in terms of VLRs, we are working, I mean, this year we have worked with 3 cities in Turkey. It's Izmir. Izmir spoke yesterday about their VLR experience. And Sultanbeyli district of Istanbul and Karatay district of the city of Konya. And this year we will be working with 2 more cities, Amman from Jordan and Agadir from Morocco. And of course, we will be coordinating with UN Habitat Regional Office for Arab States for these activities as well. So in terms of the SDG Cities program, maybe we need to talk about the advantages of working in coordination under an international body. First of all, it creates synergy among the cities and other stakeholders working under the umbrella of an international organization. And it helps cities learning from each other. Yesterday, we also heard the city of Espoo from Finland, and Espoo and Buenos Aires as well. They were cooperating with the VLR of Izmir in Turkey. So working with other cities with the similar experience, it really helps. So this kind of frameworks helps the VLR preparing cities as well. And national and international actors are better motivated to engage in the process when there is a framework. And it also helps cities to have this sense of productive competition when they are working on SDGs to lead the efforts. And particular added values of this SDG Cities program, from our perspective, it will help the VLR preparing cities to keep the momentum because they prepare the VLR and they engage. And it may fade out. So this kind of long-term program will help them to keep the momentum. And it will also create a continuous learning environment for cities. It will not last for 1 or 2 years, and it will be, we already have like 9 years, and even after the SDGs, maybe it will continue under a different title. And engage, it will help them engage in a long-term program, which goes beyond the political mandates of mayors. In this part of the world, sometimes some actions are related or they are closely tied with a specific mayor. And when that mayor leaves, some activities may stop. So this kind of long-term program will help them to pursue the same program even after the mayor is gone. Also, it will help them institutionalize their SDG localization initiatives in the same way. It will also help cities to have some sort of long-term visibility at the international level and at the national level as well. It will, we hope that it will ease their access to SDG implementation funding. The UN Habitat label will help them to reach out to different funding. They will be engaged in the global discussions on sustainability. They are already in that, but with this long-term program, it will help them to engage further in these discussions at the global level. And again, this is important from our region in particular, but it will create champions of SDG localizations and making use of them in mainstreaming SDGs. Because this kind of titles will help them mainstream SDGs in their city and in the country and in the region. Another important part, we hope that it will create policy coherence between different levels of government. Before the cities in Turkey started their VLR processes, some of the activities or some of the policies might not be in line of the national policies of SDG implementation, but during the VLR processes, they engaged and they cooperated with the national institutions to see how they can better collaborate for their own cities with the national agencies. And of course, it will create and it will safeguard, it will guarantee some sort of long-term engagement between cities and other stakeholders in their city, in the country, and also globally. So that was my intervention for now, and we hope that this program will produce successful outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question to you. As you are living in a rather challenged region, how are the cities and the villages coping with the refugees and the special stress caused by this, and how can we be of help?
Oh, very good question. In Turkey, well, the top 3 refugee hosting countries are in our region: Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. Lebanon is the top in terms of the rate of the population, as you know. But in Jordan and Lebanon, not most of, but a great deal of refugees are living in camps. Whereas in Turkey, almost all of them are situated in the cities, mostly in the cities, not in the villages, or mostly in the metropolitan cities, actually. In Istanbul, we are hosting around 1 million Syrian refugees just in one city. So there are already a lot of programs. International funding is coming, a lot of programs are ongoing, but basically after the first shock, cities are now focusing on the social cohesion activities. You will see maybe hundreds of initiatives all around Turkey in terms of this. Many international donors are funding the NGOs and municipalities in Turkey for that. And of course, some cities are already cooperating with many UN agencies, including UN Habitat, but mostly, of course, UNHCR and UNDP in Turkey. And on this note, I would like to just add, I forgot to say, but the VLR of Sultanbeyli, a district of Istanbul, they already have a part in their VLR under the title Leaving No One Behind. So they make specific reference under each SDG, how they are supporting the refugees for that specific SDG. So that was an added value for a Turkish perspective on the VLRs, I suppose.
Thank you so much. Let's move on. As we know, we need the private sector. James, you had been such a good leader and giving a helping hand moving forward, because as we know, the private sector has different approaches, but they are often extremely useful for city communities, for other organizations. speeding up processes and knowing how to get things done. Please share with us your experiences and how you could see further collaboration happening.
Roland, thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, and I guess good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank you and Habitat for giving me the opportunity to be part of today's session with all of the esteemed panelists. Brief introduction, I'm Jim Donovan, CEO of ADEC and chairman of the Global CEO Alliance. I guess let me give, well, first, Roland, thank you, trying to bring in that private sector. How do we make room for them at the table? At the end of the day, private sector makes up on average 70% of the entire economy. And we all need to figure out a way to speak a little bit of each other's language and be able to bridge this gap. And I guess my too many years in developing businesses, I'm trying to bring that to the table. So I'm going to run through a little bit of a background, what brings me to this point. The overview of what we do, ADEC Innovations has been advancing sustainability by leveraging data. And we've done that over the last 25 years. And just to give a bit of a background, we have about 4,500 staff, 18 countries now, 25 offices, supporting enterprises, coalitions, and governments, leveraging data. And what we do for them is basically program management, data, and software that help bring insight in some shape or fashion. And we've been doing this for about a quarter century. So I'm bringing that in sort of, we're the guys that really, are behind the scenes in helping leverage that for whether it's for coalitions or NGOs or how enterprises do their compliance for various governments. In our long experience of managing enterprise data for clients, it made us realize early on that ESG sustainability topic could only be addressed by eventually science-based and data-driven approach. This allows for all the partners to identify ESG risks, determine impacts, and understand the vulnerabilities and plan imminent actions. Frankly, working with the local government as partners, we've seen a lot of challenges through the years. And we've seen that cities have great potential to deliver rapid shifts for a more sustainable future. But the real challenge is you've got terms, mayoral terms, you've got capacity issues, people turning over, all the things everybody on this webinar knows more about. But I'd really like to probably hone in on two things: capital and value proposition. Cities may have the best wishes in the world to want to move the needle, but they may not have the capital. I think Carol pointed out as far as responsibilities of the officials to make sure their money. First, they may not even have the money. Next, they may not have the capacity to spend it. So somehow we need to bridge that gap. And part of bridging that gap is developing a value proposition. And value proposition for the private sector has always been based on data. So what we do or have been doing in the private sector, and then we moved over into the NGO side, Global CEO Alliance, is we deliver 4 buckets: ESG, sustainability strategy, ESG metrics and management reporting, technology solutions, and impact capital. Be very frank, impact capital gets more attention initially because people want to find out how are they going to pay for things. And that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is there, frankly, is a wall of money that from the private sector that needs to be spent on eventual mitigation. So my point being that we need to focus on developing a very clear data-driven value proposition to absorb this wall of mitigation money that is out there, but it does not have a clear path. And I believe that is emerging. And I think VLSs are beginning of that framework development. So some of our work with cities and local governments to establish ESG and sustainability strategies integrates ESG risk management into local planning. These risks aren't always obvious, but often bring long-term consequences. One is more severe with the immediate losses related to infrastructure damage and business interruptions. And they often go beyond the insurance claims and impacts to be highly catastrophic. We work with them historically to align development plans and investment plans on the short term, gradual compounding nature of climate change impacts and related policy long term. This provides a roadmap for our partners, the investment partners, and also the receivers of the funds to manage the biggest systemic risks that are mapped out so they don't miss any of the major intervention points. So historically, Global Sea Alliance has worked with cities in mapping out and gathering ESG metrics relevant to their strategy. Every country, every city, frankly, has a little bit of a different approach to this. We need anything that can do to help us standardize that would be welcome. This pretty much, our goal is to have our partners to model ESG risks numerically and gain a deeper understanding of probable impacts and potential remediation actions. This helps increase the adaptive capacity of cities and align financial resources, human resources, and adaptive options. This in turn will help our clients develop attractive policies, regulations, and standards. The necessary scale and pace of ESG transition, I don't think is lost on anybody on this particular webinar. It needs to happen, but frankly, it gets underestimated once it gets down into the weeds of the level of complication. And it's due to many facts, but not all cities, I think as Carol had pointed out, or several members here, are created equal. And the ESG risks they face are varied, and their situation, whether it be political or financial, also are varied. Technology solutions. We're in such a time of transformative capability of technology. I think it was mentioned before, technology is allowing all of us to have this meeting. Technology is absolutely disrupting all aspects of society. We need to somehow bring that technological capability to cities. I mean, just as a data point, 60% of all enterprises are going to be platform companies in the near future. I would say within under 10 years. Why is that? Because platforms allow better efficiency. Private sector is going to that. We need to drive cities, or at least bring the value proposition to cities to show operating in a platform, utilizing, leveraging technology brings such scale and efficiencies that it just makes no sense not to. So I'm just, I'm not trying to push one agenda or somebody's technology. I'm just saying there's a reason private sector is driving to, a lot of the things that we deal with every day are actually platforming actions. And I think we need to look at how disruptive technology is and how can we bring that into cities. We believe that platforming will allow us to discover and evaluate and use a broadest range of data for multiple sources, enable us to account for vulnerabilities within risk management and frameworks, unlike any other possibility. This will allow us to take in the dynamic science-based and data-driven action that frankly we need to utilize more dynamically so that we can cushion the population at risk. The social economic impacts of ESG risks are sustainable and are substantial and increasing, affect human beings alongside our physical and natural capital. For businesses, it is important to understand the nature and extent of vulnerabilities. Government spending alone cannot solve the problem. We believe that capital will allow us to facilitate financial flows. And this is in line with the systems that UN Habitat are putting forward. Our ESG experience helps us identify investments and provide greater positive impact that can be achieved. Our investment strategy is ambitious to really drive mitigation money from the private sector into these accredited programs. And we believe it is aligned with the SDG goals and the Paris Climate Agreement. So on my last point, quickly, let me highlight that the wide-ranging consensus of mitigation of ESG in local governments, this will require incentives, investment, ingenuity, and unprecedented levels of cooperation. Business must play a role, a vital role in helping to deliver it. Business should not just wait for the change, but be part of being invited to the table. Let us identify, shape, and invest in the proportions that are profitable while effectively driving growth and opportunities emerging in the future. We are one community, and we must remember that. Thank you all for listening. And again, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. Let's go directly to Paul. Please share with us what you have built already.
Thank you. I'll try and make sure I'm tight with time. So thanks, and thanks to James for introducing the private sector and how we're represented here. So I'm a business leader out here in Southeast Asia. I work for Mott MacDonald, who's a global engineering management and development consultancy. So I also, in another hat on, I lead a program called the Future Cities Southeast Asia program for the SCDO, the UK government. And that's a program of 13 projects in 9 cities in 6 countries. So it's quite a sizable endeavor across transformational projects in transport, urban and resilience subject areas. So it's been great to listen and understand a little bit about action. And I guess I'm going to try and shine very quickly some views on what actually creates that action, minded that time is running away and time will run away on this SDG timetable. So we're going to be looking at a little bit, thinking about what's practical, what actually affects change on the ground, away from some of the hypothetical structures. And James talked about investment, which is absolutely critical, that new money that comes in, but perhaps we should be making sure we don't forget about optimizing existing money, existing plans, and how we scope and fill the best results. Maybe nudging is maybe a phrase that is used around this, to get what's already going to happen better. And I think that's where the private sector really can come into play. But I'd ask all of you, and most I think people here are from the public sector in some formats. The private sector is hugely innovative, hugely resourceful, but it works to rules, it works to contracts, it works to hard boundaries, budgets, schedules. Value for money has been talked about, and that needs to come from business case drivers. So we need to start valuing the SDGs so that we can actually create them into a contract that then becomes something that's timely and delivered, and in that process can be optimized. There's no problem with optimizing. Tools are critical. The UN Habitat team have created a very good way of trying to break this down and start categorizing and stretching it out so that people can understand. But we do need to make that next step and linkage through to business drivers, business case drivers, and the hard requirement in legislation, in design code, that means these things have to happen. So just very quickly, I'll mention about innovation, and I really would emphasize that cross-sector working is actually where innovation, when something new occurs. And that's where the private sector will do very well and introduce a lot of ideas. Again, it's about sort of nudging, and I think personally, a lot of the wins will be about optimizing. So if we talk often about cities and urban environments, but cities also have water systems. They have more boring infrastructure things, and those will be invested in. And so it's about, how do we get those? And I stopped us, and that's what the program I've been working on. And I'll leave it there. I've got some examples, but we're a little bit short of time. So thank you.
Well, I think this will be just the beginning, because we are going, as it is all about the networking, we will start exchanging our emails, and we make sure that not only on the platform you helped develop together with UN Habitat, the city's investment facility, this needs these examples and the further dialogue, and I'm pretty sure we will all meet in one way or the other in Poland at the World Urban Forum in Katowice in only a few months. This brings us to the end of this session. The next one, starting in 15 minutes, is exactly on what we just ended on. How can we organize additional funding? Because it's not just a talk, it's a reality that the money is there, but the question is, how can we connect the cities with those who have the funds available, whether they are the Climate Investment Fund, whether it is the World Bank, whether it is the faiths who have quite a lot of money and are finally having agreed to get invested in the SDGs. So thank you to all. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you very soon, latest in Katowice, maybe in Davos, and see you in 15 minutes back on time for the next session. Thank you so much.